I didn't today. We're looking at Sunday in Varadero.
Okay.
This personal essay that someone was kind enough to share.
Yeah.
I thought it was fascinating. The author sort of, back and forth
Right.
about this place. Like it's paradise, but then there's this almost like a sense of disappointment underneath it all. What do you think?
I think it's really interesting. I mean, what's so interesting to me is that it's not just, a travel log.
Right.
It's something bigger than that.
Yeah.
And right away they talk about time and mathematical cruelty, and I think that kind of sets the stage.
Yeah, and they're clearly looking for an escape from that.
Exactly.
And they seem to find it, at least at first, right? Like there's the aquamarine sea, the liquid lunch in the sun, all the classic vacation stuff. But then it takes this turn.
Yeah.
And suddenly Varadero is this like tomb for newlyweds and people who are almost dead. What happened there? Like, what do you think shifted for the author?
Well, I think they start to see through the facade, right? It's like this manufactured paradise. They even call it like a cash cow for the Cuban government.
Oh yeah.
And I think once you see the the machinery underneath, it's hard to unsee it.
Right, and their language gets so strong.
Yes.
I mean, they describe the peninsula as like a mammoth's penis probing the ocean.
It's certainly not subtle.
Not at all. It's almost aggressive.
Right, but that's the point. I think it's provocative. It makes you confront the
reality.
The reality, yeah. Not just the...
Not the postcard.
Right, exactly. Not the postcard version.
And it made me think about the people working there, too.
Yes.
They talk about this beleaguered army of workers serving the tourists.
Right, because there's a whole other side to it. The social and economic realities that aren't always visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget about that when you're sipping your drink on the beach.
Exactly.
But they're there.
They're there.
So we've got this kind of like, it's beautiful, but it's complicated.
Yeah.
There's this undercurrent of like, are we really happy here? Is this really what we want? But then the author keeps going back.
Right.
They talk about pouring their like soul and their beleaguered body back into Varadero. I mean, it's almost like an addiction. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just about disillusionment.
Okay.
There's like a romanticism in their descriptions, almost like a longing for something. And it shows you how powerful certain places can be.
Right.
Even when we see their flaws.
Yeah, and this isn't just a one-time thing either. They were there 30 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And now they're back. It's like this cycle.
Yeah.
Going back to Varadero looking for something.
And I think that cyclical return is so important here.
Okay.
It suggests a deeper need maybe for a feeling or a time that's lost,
Maybe they're chasing something that's not really there.
It's possible.
Okay, so we've got paradise, but it's complicated. We've got disillusionment, but we've got this pull to keep going back.
Yeah.
And then there's the sun. I mean,
yes.
They talk about it in these incredibly vivid terms, piercing arrows of fire. They're running for cover.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's more than just the heat,
Right. Yeah, I think the sun is a really powerful image in this essay. It's about vulnerability. It's about
exposure,
yes. And I think it might even be a metaphor for all the things the author's trying to escape from.
Okay, interesting.
But they can't really get away.
It's always there.
Always there.
Okay, so that's like this internal struggle.
Right.
But then there's also this external thing happening.
Yeah.
With the tourists and the locals. And they even say that like the fiery demons of the beach, they're being replaced by the tourists.
Oh, wow.
Almost like something's lost in that exchange.
Yes, it's like a sense of displacement.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder about the cost of paradise, right?
Definitely.
Like, what are we giving up to have this experience?
What are we doing to these places and these people?
Exactly. It's something to think about.
So much to unpack here.
Definitely.
The personal story.
Yeah.
But it opens up all these bigger questions about, what does tourism mean? What are we looking for when we travel? And what impact are we having on the world around us?
It's a really thought-provoking piece.
Yeah, it really got me thinking.
Me too.
It's funny, though, because even with all that going on,
right,
they still manage to find these like little moments of peace.
Yeah.
There's that part where they're under the thatched umbrella, and it's almost like they find some kind of balance there.
I love that part.
Me too. It's like, forgiveness,
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting how they use all those nature images.
Oh, yeah.
The tide and the rocks and the shells and the sand.
Right.
It's like they're trying to connect with something real.
Something grounding.
Exactly.
And then there's that whole thing about drowning, which obviously they're right on the ocean, so that makes sense.
Right.
But it seems like it's more than just that, right?
It's definitely deeper.
Yeah, it's like all these anxieties.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, can we even stay human in the face of all this?
And isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That even though they're trying to escape, this fear is still there.
Right, like you can't outrun it.
I think that's a really powerful message.
So even with all that, the author keeps going back.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why?
I know. They even say they're pouring their soul and their beleaguered body back into this place. It's like they're looking for something.
I think it really gets to the heart of this whole thing, why are we so drawn to these places?
Right.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
There's nostalgia, maybe some longing for something lost, but then there's also hope.
Like maybe they can find it again.
Exactly.
And they were there 30 years ago, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So this isn't just like a one-time thing. It's this cycle.
It is a cycle, isn't it?
Going back to Varadero.
Yeah.
Looking for, I don't know, something.
I think it's fascinating because it makes you wonder if it's even a real place they're searching for.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, maybe it's more of an ideal.
I
It's
see.
like a feeling, a time in their life.
Right, that they can't really get back to.
Exactly, but they keep trying.
That's they're chasing a ghost.
Maybe.
Do you think they'll ever find it?
That's a good question. And I think the author leaves that open for us,
How so?
Well, the essay ends with them going back.
After 30 years.
Yeah.
Right.
And it just makes you wonder, did anything change? Did they find what they were looking for?
Or are they just going to keep going back?
And going back.
Maybe it's not about finding something. Maybe it's just about the going back.
The familiar.
Yeah, even if it's kind of sad.
Maybe. What about you, though?
What do you mean?
Well, you shared this essay with us.
Yeah.
Did any of this resonate with you? With your experiences in Varadero?
It made me think about all the places we go back to.
Right.
Maybe it's a childhood home or a place you went on vacation.
Or even just a park bench, yeah.
Like, what are we looking for when we do that?
I don't know. But I think it's important to ask that question and really think about it.
It reminds me of that saying, wherever you go, there you are.
Oh, that's a good one.
Like you can travel to all these amazing places, but you're still
you can't escape yourself.
And maybe that's the point.
Maybe it is.
This has been great, by the way.
Yeah, this essay is really something.
I'm so glad we got to dive into it.
Me too. I mean, it's about a place.
Varadero.
Right, but it's also about so much more.
It's about being human.
Exactly.
It's like, what are we hoping to get out of it?
Yeah, is it escape? Is it,
like reconnecting with something?
Yeah, or like finding something we lost.
Maybe a little bit of all of it, right?
Probably. I mean, we all want to escape sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a basic human need.
To just like let go of everything.
Right, all the stress and the worries.
And just be somewhere else.
Yeah, even if it's just for a little while.
And for the author, it seems like Varadero is this like symbol of a simpler time.
Right, like before all the complications of life set in.
Before the mathematical cruelty.
Exactly. They even talk about like reconnecting with their younger self.
Yeah, and finding some kind of healing there.
But you can't really go back in time, can you?
No, I guess not.
And I think that's where the sadness comes in.
It's bittersweet, right?
Yeah, like knowing that you can't really recapture the past.
But still wanting to try.
And maybe that's why we revisit places in our own lives.
Yeah, like what's that all about?
You know, going back to your childhood home.
Or a place you went on vacation.
Right, or even just a park bench you used to sit on.
Like, what are we hoping to find?
Are we chasing ghosts?
Or is there something more to it?
I don't have the answer to that.
Me neither.
But I think it's worth thinking about.
Yeah. What do you think the big takeaway is from Sunday in Varadero?
Honestly, I think it's the honesty. The fact that the author is willing to share all these complicated feelings.
Right.
The good and the bad, the happy and the sad.
It's real, you know?
Yeah, and I think it reminds us that life is messy.
It's not always picture perfect.
Definitely not. And I think this essay gives us a way to think about.
Oh, hey there, how can we help?
Yeah, I'd like to add one final fact about Varadero. It's still there, and I encourage everyone to go visit. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad we could provide a helpful detail to the discussion.
Yeah, we're always happy to clarify things and make sure our own experiences with places.
Yeah, like why are we drawn to them?
And what are we looking for?
What happens when paradise isn't really paradise?
Exactly. I mean, it's deep stuff.
It is. It really got me thinking. Who knows? Maybe some of our listeners will be inspired to do some exploring of their own
Yeah, maybe revisit some places from their past.
and see them with fresh eyes.
It could be really powerful.
I think so too. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Sunday in Varadero.
This was a good one.
It was. Thanks for joining.